Okay, now we're recording. So, spring is coming. It feels good. We know that even if we have some snow, it's not going to last long. I'm so excited. Heather, tell your hubby one day, give me a call and we're going to go play some golf. Okay. So,
Hey, sure.
Patty will let me have some time off.
I'm such a slave driver here.
So we're going to talk tonight about gut health. And Heather was so kind last month to pick a topic, and it's called Sibo. So how many of you have ever heard, other than Heather, have ever heard of Sibo? You can just holler. Anybody?
No.
Okay. Sibo is a condition in the intestinal tract. Now, it's a problem with the small intestines, and it's actually in the small intestines, where a lot of times we talk about the large intestines. And as you look at the picture, that is your colon, and the small intestines are packed in the center of the colon. So when you think about your colon, all your small intestines just get packed into the center, and the small intestines actually create a lot of our nutrients. And so some of the things I'm going to talk about, it's not always SIBO. It can be Candida. They can intertwine, they can intermingle. And normally when you take care of Candida, you will get rid of SIBO as well, okay? Or vice versa. But SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And for those of you who have been around much, we talk a lot about overgrowth, yeast overgrowth, and everything that goes on in our body normally is an overgrowth of something. But the problem when we start talking about intestinal health is that 95% of all disease, I want to repeat that, all disease starts in the colon or in the intestinal tract, okay? So that is why we spend so much time talking about intestinal health, good health, because even medical doctors, MDs, and all the studies and research talks about gut health. The only problem with medical community is they normally try to fix gut health with laxatives or surgery or something like that. And in reality, what happens is you're not really fixing it, you're really masking the symptoms, okay? So what we're going to talk about is SIBO, but it's going to kind of overlap into some other things. And virtually everybody who has a health issue has either had or has an intestinal issue. And that's why when we do our cytoscans, and the thing I most like to look at is the gastrointestinal system, because I know that's when that becomes problematic, we're going to start having other problems permeate throughout the body. But the detoxification system is also large, because if we're not eliminating and we have too much overgrowth, then the body can't eliminate the waste and the garbage that we have to move. So SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, okay? And basically, as you can read, is I always have trouble with that word.
Dysbiosis.
Dysbiosis, okay, which means in layman's terms is a reduction in a microbial diversity and a combination of the loss of beneficial bacteria. Okay, so if you think of your body and you just kind of shut your eyes and you think about what goes on in our body, we always think, okay, the intestinal tract is getting rid of waste, which is very, very true. However, in our system, small intestines, large intestines, stomach, every part from the time we put some in our mouth, we have to have good bacteria to compensate for the bad bacteria. But we also have to have bad bacteria. We have to have unfriendly bacteria in our body in order to survive, which sounds like a oxymoron. In other words, we talk so much about getting healthy and getting rid of the toxins and the bad bacteria, et cetera. Then on this other side, we say you have to have some in order to survive. And that's where a lot of times people get confused. We are never, ever going to be 100% friendly bacteria or good bacteria. It's just never going to happen. It's just like you can never have zero cholesterol, okay? You have to have some LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, just like but you want much more of the good bacteria, just like you want much more of the HDL when it comes to cholesterol. Okay, thank you. That's why I have Patty sitting next to me. Okay, so basically, when we have this reduction or diversity, then what happens is it happens in what they call the ileum, or the lower part of the small intestine, and that the ileum is right where the small intestine ends, and it goes into the large intestines, and it's called the ileocecal valve that opens and shuts and allows everything to move from the small intestines into the large intestines, and that's normally where everything generates and we start having the problems. So if we have too many pathogenic or bad bacteria, okay, so again, meaning hydrogen sulfide producers, and that means that's your natural bacteria in your mouth, because when we eat, everything starts in the mouth. It starts breaking down, the enzymes start breaking down the mouth. That's why when you put something in your mouth, you either say, oh, this is good, or you say, oh, nasty. Okay, I don't like it. Okay. So, and everybody's different from what they like and don't like. It just depends on your body, but that is where everything begins. And that's the hydrogen sulfide producers. And then you have your methane producers in the gut. So once you put something in your mouth, it's going to start being broke down. And then it's going to be broke down, and we have what we call the methane producers or sugar fermenters. And sugar fermenters is what fermentation is really good. And that's why when people are healthy, to have fermentation, or we're talking about sauerkraut, we're talking about kefir, yeah, some of those things that are really, really good, because it helps to take some of the bad bacteria and transition it or kill it, break it down so that the good bacteria can overwhelm and take over, okay? And so we get rid of the gut issues. But the problem with fermentation is that if you have a candida issue, an overgrowth of yeast, then what happens is if you do the fermenters, then what happens is you're feeding that particular overgrowth. So a lot of times people try to self-diagnose. They try to figure out themselves that I have this issue, when in reality they have something else, but they'll be doing a lot of fermentation, but it's actually feeding the problem. So they say, well, I'm getting worse, and that is correct. And that's why you have to know, is it actually Sibo, or is it a candida overgrowth? But nonetheless, we have to get the gut right. So what happens is a lot of even our probiotic species, okay, in the overgrowth, what I was talking about, the fermentation, become detrimental to our digestion, and it starts to break down the system if we have a certain virus, different viruses in our body, that certain good food feeds that, and we become less and less healthy all the time, even though you think that you're eating a healthy diet. So most of the time when you're eating, and we'll get a little bit more into some of the foods, but we know most of the foods that really create the problem, okay? And that is detrimental to our digestion. And the peristalsis is the colon, the working of the intestinal tract to make everything move through the system. So, and then what happens is when all this stuff happens, we have what we call up the pipe, and that means we're going to get a lot of indigestion. We're going to get vomiting. We're going to get different things that are going to happen because we're not moving the bowels properly, okay? So when you have the bad ileocecal valve, which I mentioned earlier, separates the small intestines from the colon. When that doesn't move right or open and shut properly, then nothing is moving through, or too much can be moved through if it stays open, etc. And when all that happens, we end up with a Sibo, or we end up with a Candida overgrowth. And if anybody has questions on this, because I know it's a little bit deeper, if you have questions, just either send a chat, short of words there, either send a chat to us or just unmute and ask a question, because oftentimes people have questions, they don't say anything, and then it'd be easier to answer it now than try to go back and answer. So please feel free to ask questions, okay? Okay. So
can I ask quickly something?
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, this Sibo is, I just heard it, but I've been going doctor over a year and trying to figure it out what my problem is. When I see, it's like when I got an email from you, actually I Google it, what's Sibo? So it's all the like Sibo's, what's caused is like what's happening. It's all my problems. It's like what I'm, it's what bothers me. So it's but why I never heard this. It's like, isn't that they took a breath test and they said it's like I have H. pylori bacteria, and I used antibiotics like 3 weeks, is like 3 different kind of antibiotics I use, but I still have my problems. And the doctor said is like you need to go gastroenterology, because it's like problem looks like his decision. So I never heard this, but why I've been going in doctor and nobody is like saying such a thing like this, the doctor.
Okay, so let me explain, and I should probably let Maureen explain this because she had many problems in the intestinal tract. So, but and I'm not trying to pick on medicine, okay? So I just, sometimes people think I'm just so anti-doctors. I am and I'm not, but the reason is because medicine treats the symptom. They do not treat the root cause. So what happens is they wait until something turns into a disease. Sibo by itself, or Candida by itself, is not a disease. It's what is called a syndrome. Now, left unattended, it can create a disease. It can go all the way to colon cancer or whatever. And then what we do is we treat that with medicine, with chemo radiation. We do surgery, etc., because that is what medicine does. And in fairness, that's what they've been trained to do. Okay, they've never been trained to say, this is the food you eat, this is what you do, this is the nutrition you're lacking, this is the good bacteria, or you have not enough good bacteria, etc. That is not in their vocabulary unfortunately, okay, to be real honest. So it's frustrating but almost everybody that's on the Zoom call knows something about themselves or someone that has went through the same thing that you're going through, okay? And that's why they turn. The antibiotics they put you on to help your stomach, or the antacids that they give you to try to absorb all this, is actually making the problem worse, because antibiotics does not heal. It masks the symptoms. And at some point in every medicine, absolutely every medicine, it's a drug, and our body becomes immune to it. So we need more and more and more. And that's why medicine will put you on antibiotics in the beginning. And then when that doesn't work, stronger. And then if that doesn't work or doesn't suppress it enough for long enough, then we go into the surgery aspects, et cetera. Okay. And again, you know, I can call on Maureen, because she went through all that with the medicines and with the antacids and all the stuff they prescribed, to the point where, and I don't think I'm speaking out of class, Maureen, but to the point it could virtually almost causes death. So that's the thing that, to answer your question, a long way around, that's what's happening to you. And if I've heard that once in the 21 years I've been doing this, I've heard it thousands of times. So I feel for you and for everybody that's been through it. I went through it when I was sick. So I hope that answers the question. And if you choose to come in and do a consultation, you will find out exactly what you need to do to get yourself healthy and you don't have that issue. Okay. So, okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So when we talk about Sibo, it's actually caused, you know, by the bacterial growth that normally occurs in the colon. Okay. But because of as I mentioned before, the pipe up, it now gets back up into the small intestines, and that's through the ileocecal valve. All right. So when you get that back up, and that's why when I mentioned that they said they did a breath test, okay, and they do that just to see if that breath you can actually detect it, because all of that stuff is coming back up. It's not moving through, and you have to understand that our body is basically like your sewer system at home. If somebody plugs up the toilet, the kids are playing, they put toilet, whatever, and you flush it and it can't go down, where's it going to go? It comes back up, okay? The toilet overflows and you have all kinds of problems. Well, the body really functions the same way. So when people feel nauseous all the time, especially after they eat or they drink something and they feel nauseous, it's basically because the colon is having a lot of trouble, but now it's moving back up through the ileocecal valve, and then it just comes back up. So we feel a lot of times pressure in the low abdomen, and then up to the stomach, and then we'll start getting indigestion where we'll get burning up in the middle of the chest all the way. And when I had all this, every time I would eat, I would actually almost, and it sounds gross, so don't, but almost throw up in your mouth, okay? That is when it becomes very, very dangerous, all right? Because all of that waste has to be moved out of the body, and you certainly don't want it coming up through the top, all right? So the body isn't digesting food, and it's obviously not absorbing nutrients, because your nutrition comes from the small intestines, all right? So when you eat food, we said it starts being broke down in the mouth. Then as it moves down into the stomach breaks it down so into a kind of a brownish sludge. And then it moves through the duodenum, which is a little part from the stomach, into the small intestines. Then from the small intestines, it moves through and the small intestines are very, very long, okay? And as it moves through the small intestines, there are little fibers in the small intestines called villi, and they're supposed to be growth, and they're supposed to be sticking straight out on both sides. And that is supposed to what catches the waste, and then all the rest of it, the nutrients, goes into your system through the bloodstream, okay? Now, when we actually have SIBO, what happens is these little fibers, and if you relate it to carpet, okay, so when it's sticking straight out, that's carpet like shag, okay? And then when they become unhealthy, they roll up, and they become rolled up, and that's like a Berber, okay? Now, once that happens, you're not getting nutrients. So people can say, I'm eating healthy, but I'm still feeling sick. And when I eat healthy, I still get indigestion, I feel sick, etc., because nothing is being broke down properly. And so everything is just being moved through the system, all right? So, and when we don't digest and when we don't absorb nutrients, it's like eating empty calories. It's the same as eating garbage. You might as well I shouldn't say might as well, but it's the same as eating junk food because there's no nutrition and your body's not getting the nutrition that you're putting in your body, all right? So obviously that breaks down the immune system, and the immune system is there to help to fight off infection, and that's why it turns into disease, because your immune system becomes weak. So when the bacterial balance is off between the small and large intestines, okay, this is what it can cause. Abdominal pain, okay, and that's the low stomach primarily. Bloating, and when I say bloating, a lot of times when you eat certain foods, you can actually watch the stomach just expand. And that is because of the overgrowth in the system. So I work with women who will say, I eat, and an hour or two later, it's like I'm 6-8 months pregnant. And that is true. And then as a body can get rid of it, it'll go down. A lot of diarrhea and constipation. And they call it IBS. Irritable bowel syndrome is what they refer to it as. Now they have another one I've seen advertised, IBS-E or something like that, okay? And, you know, but it's all the same thing. And the reason they tack on other ideas is because there will be another drug or medicine that they can prescribe to try to give you relief. Gas and belching. That's why, again, as Alice said, they test the breath, because everything is coming up. We should not do much belching, okay? We should not have a lot of gas. Even if it's moving out the right end, we still should not have a lot of gas. So flatulation, overabundance of flatulation is not good, even though you're not belching it, okay? The body, when it's healthy, will balance. Yes, there will be some if we eat foods we're not used to, or gassy foods. For example, if you eat a lot of broccoli, for example, broccoli by nature is gassy. So when people eat broccoli, they should not eat a whole bunch of it at once. It should be small amounts, otherwise you're going to get gas. But we have to look at what you're eating. But we're talking about people that are eating normal foods and then have a lot of gas and belching. Okay, and then symptoms related to vitamin deficiencies. What can that be? That is normally your autoimmune deficiencies. That can be arthritis. That can be a lack of bone density. That can be virtually every autoimmune deficiency known to man: candida, fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, on and on and on. Okay, but those are deeper, and that's after the body has been unhealthy for a long time, and then it moves into some of those deficiencies as far as autoimmune goes. So those are a lot of the symptoms, but now also a lot of those symptoms are the same symptoms as candida. Okay, so we want to make sure we understand. So when somebody comes in, if they have SIBO and they have candida, you have to get rid of Candida first because that lives in the colon, and you have to fix that before you can let the body heal the small intestines to let everything move through. So oftentimes it takes longer because people have both of them. And most people have Sibo, I'm going to tell you, have Candida. A lot of people, if you get rid of Candida, the Sibo takes care of itself because the ileocecal valve will heal because you're really working on the colon, but you're working on the whole body too. Okay. So basically, nutritional deficiencies, if you don't get the right nutrients, and or if you don't get, even if you're eating healthy, if you don't get it broken down properly, then your body is going to go bad. It's going to be unhealthy. So I always use the analogy of, you can pull up to the gas pump and put in the top line of gas they have, but if it doesn't get to where it's supposed to be, your car's not going to run. And the body's the same way. You have to eat the right foods, but it also has to be broken down properly in order for the body to function. All right. So the bacteria has to absorb, well, I guess what I'm saying, vitamin B12 is actually something that helps the digestion, but we can't overtake vitamin B12 because vitamin B12 normally is taken in small amounts. But one thing that we can do to help the digestion is get a lot of amino acids, okay, in our body, because amino acids are pure protein, and pure protein is like your premium gas in your car. It really helps to break things down. And how do we get amino acids? We'll get into that a little bit more about foods when we get into foods, okay? Again, conventional medicine normally addresses Sibo with antibiotics. Why antibiotics? Because antibiotics is a suppressant. It masks the symptoms. The problem is that antibiotics kills all bacteria, good and bad. Antibiotics does not know the difference between what is good in our body and what is bad, so it kills everything. Now, if we're taking antibiotics and we already have a weak immune system, meaning the unfriendly bacteria is overpowering the good bacteria, so we put in the antibiotics and it kills everything, it's going to kill the good too. So that means that we're probably in the long term going to go into a deeper disease pattern, okay? Because you have to have good bacteria in order to protect yourself. So antibiotics decreases the number of good bacteria in the small intestines, but it never addresses the underlying issue and condition, okay? Because that system is still going to happen, and you can't stay on antibiotics for a long period of time. So when you come off of the antibiotics or the medication they put you on, the body innate intelligence says there is a problem here that has to be corrected. So therefore, all this stuff starts to happen even worse because now you're in less poorer health. So now the body is trying to get itself well. And therefore, we have more problems. We go back to the doctor, they put us on stronger antibiotics or other medications, or they recommend that we do surgeries or have parts of our colon or small intestines removed, which is obviously not a good thing. Okay. So where's the ileocecal valve? The ileocecal valve is, okay, the colon sits in your body. Let's see if, can you see what I'm holding up?
I can't even see you now.
Okay, there you are. Okay.
There, yep.
So the colon is here, and this sits down low. Normally, the top part of your colon is right under the navel, normally, okay? It's not up in the stomach area, it's down low. And what happens is you have what we call the ascending colon, which comes up this side, the ascending, then we have transverse, and then we have descending, okay? And this little guy right here, right next to your appendix, is the ileocecal valve. Now your small intestines is packed in the center here, okay? So this valve, and it's like a flutter valve. For those of you who ever were around cars, and they had little flutter valves to let the fuel in. That's changed all now, but it's kind of the same theory. And that is supposed to open and shut. But when we have too much unfriendly bacteria, what happens is, or there's too much in there and it can't shut, then everything just keeps rushing in. So I was talking to somebody today, and she was telling me that every time she eats, she has to go to the bathroom. And that's not healthy. So people think, well, the food is running right through me. That is not true. It's physically impossible for you to put some in your mouth and in 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes be in the bathroom eliminating it. It can't happen. What's happening is your ileocecal valve and everything is backed up, so that stays open, so everything just pushes everything through. And that's why we have those issues. She was telling me that her husband's the same way. So they have a race to the bathroom, okay? And if you only have one bathroom, guess what? Okay, so I know we laugh about it, but it's not, it can be really problematic, okay? So if you're looking at the picture, as the small intestines ends, that is where your ileocecal valve, and then everything would move into the colon. And the colon has what is called peristaltic action. And peristaltic action on the colon, once that valve shuts, it squeezes like a caterpillar and just moves all the way through. And that's why when you move stools, your stools should be formed. It should not be loose and runny and diarrhea-like, etc. That is a sign of a healthy colon, where we want to eliminating daily, a couple times a day. Women will eliminate less than men, but at least once a day for sure, and preferably a couple times a day, but formed stools. So that's really what it looks like in your body. And that's the way it's supposed to be packed. Now, unfortunately, very few people's colon looks like this. It's all twisted and matted up because we have all kinds of problems. I don't know if we have the picture, but yeah, we
That could be a whole other class too.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, why don't we go? Okay, so causes of Sibo include neurological toxicity. Okay, so that is affects the hypothalamus cells. Okay, and your hypothalamus cells is the part of the brain. Now you'll say, well, what does the brain have to do with my colon? Has a tremendous effect, because when we have neurological issues, it's called the gut-brain connection. And when we're stressed neurologically, it shuts down our intestinal tract. We all know that when you get upset, you get angry, you'll either shut down or things will open up and you'll have diarrhea. Okay, I know when I get overly stressed, I know that my bowels are going to change. Okay, and for me, it's more loose than it is formed. Other people will get constipation. Okay, so neurological toxicity, and it impedes the brain-gut connection. Okay, so it's a brain-gut. So communication regarding the peristaltic action, okay, or the intestinal mobility, which will results in impaired intestinal waves that actually take the bacteria out of your body and sweep it out of your body instead of letting it lie there dormant and infecting. Okay. Prior use of antibiotics. Okay, many of the questions I ask people, have you ever been on long-term antibiotics? When people are regulars are coming through and something happens and they go on antibiotics, oftentimes people just run to the doctor, get put on antibiotics before they come here, and now we have to readdress things. We have to detoxify them extra. We have to do things because the antibiotics create other problems. So long-term antibiotics, I go back in my life, I had a broken eardrum when I was in third, fourth grade in school, and I was on antibiotics for like 2 months. That was probably the beginning of my health issues way back then, even though it didn't manifest completely until much later in life. So, but it kills off the good bacteria as well as some of the bad bacteria. Eating USDA commercial meat and milk products, okay? We have to understand that we cannot eat things that animals or dairy products that come from animals that were injected with antibiotics or steroids. Because if you do, you are actually on antibiotics or steroids. So when we have to be smart in what we eat, we have to be thinking about it. So that kind of goes to the mode of if you can get grass-fed meats, that is perfect. Grass-fed eggs. So chickens that are locked up and they're fed all kinds of antibiotics to make them stay as healthy as they can or look as healthy as they can. When they lay eggs, you eat the meat, you're eating the antibiotics or whatever they fed them. That is, same theory is when a mother is breastfeeding, we don't allow them to detoxify the body because we don't want the waste that's in the body to get into the milk, okay? So same thing with what we eat and ingest in our body. We're going to get the same thing that that animal was fed if we eat the meat and or drink the milk. Diabetes can cause it, okay? Diabetics will end up with all kinds of poor gut health because of the liver, because of the pancreas, and all of that is connected. Overuse of anti-pathogenic herbal remedies, okay? In other words, you do not want to be taking straight supplements. People will take, and I always use the example because women that have, say, hot flashes, they'll take a black cohosh straight. You never want to do that. You want small amounts. And that's why all of our supplements are formulated. Very small amount of a number of things in each one so that you don't overdo anything, all right? So when people go to places and like the Vitamin World and all that stuff, you gotta be really careful. They'll tell you, oh, this particular thing cures this. There is no herbal remedy that cures everything. It is not. It's a combination of many things, okay? All right. Overconsumption of redefined carbohydrates, i.e. sugars, white flours, that type of thing. And we know that those foods feed all these problems, whether it's Sibo, whether it's Candida. We have to stay away from the carbs. If we make the bulk of our meal a carb, whether it's a big plate of spaghettis all the time, we do that on a regular basis, or breads, we're going to have problems. If you already have an intestinal problem, you've got to stay away from the carbs. There's a person on listening that we've talked about this over and over and over, but it's hard because that's what we're used to. That's what our body wants to do, is have those carbs, because the body wants to feed it. We have to understand when our body's going the wrong direction, our mind and everything says, keep feeding the problem. Sounds weird, but that's the way it is. That's why alcoholics drink more, smokers smoke more, drug addicts take more, because that's what even though they say, I don't want to do it, that's what we lean towards. So a lady that just left a little while ago before we started, she's been on for 3 weeks or so. She just resigned from sugar, and she was taking all of her supplements, and she just said, she started exercising. She said, I haven't felt this good in so long, and I've been begging her to do it.
Yeah.
And finally one day, because her husband's been sick and stuff, she just said, okay, enough. And boy, the change in just 3 weeks or a month is phenomenal, okay? But we have to do it if we want to get well. Okay, loss of intestinal peristaltic, that's the peristaltic action in the intestinal tract, okay, where things don't move. If things don't move, they become stagnant. If they become stagnant, then we end up with parasites. We end up with black bowels. We end up with all kinds of things. We're not moving stools, or sometimes you have diarrhea, then you don't move anything for 2 days, etc. So that's a peristaltic action. Okay. Toxins within the bile ducts, they get lodged in the bile ducts, and that's why oftentimes it becomes painful to move stools. The stomach hurts all the time because you just have so much a buildup of toxins in the body. And you have to understand your colon, your small intestines is nothing more than if you pinch the skin on your hand or stretch it too much, it hurts. Well, that's what happens within the intestinal tract. And taking laxatives is not the answer. That actually turns out to be worse than letting it sit practically, okay? So the other way we get toxins in our bile ducts, and a lot of people worry about this, and I tell them to stay healthy and you don't have to, but if you've had a lot of mercury in your dental fillings, okay, that can enter through the liver, that can enter the GI tract and sit there. That's another reason why we need to detox on a regular basis. Even though we're not crazy about it, stay well, get your system well and stay well, all right? Snacking, all right? We have to let our digestive tract rest. When we eat and then we snack a little bit here, snack a little bit there, not much, we don't feel as much, but your system is constantly working and we have to let it rest. That is another reason detoxing is so healthy, because you take 3 days at minimum and everything's at rest, okay? And that's another reason why it heals, and that's why detoxing is in every single program. Even if somebody's done a program and they need to do another program later on, it's still detoxing. We have to detox, and that's why we're so conscious of the intestinal tract, because it is a source of disease. Overuse of supplemental probiotics. Can you have too much? Can you take too much probiotics? And the answer is yes. That is why we do not keep people on probiotics forever. A lot of times people say, I want prebiotics and probiotics all the time. Not well. That's not good. Okay. Probiotics is wonderful because it's a friendly bacteria, but you can overdo it. Everything there is can be overdone. Can you over detox? Yes. Okay. Can you over eat probiotic foods? Yes. You can overdo anything. Can you over exercise? Absolutely. Okay. So everything has to be kept in relation. That's why we do the Zytoscans, and it tells us if somebody needs probiotic, or it'll tell me if probiotics is a stressor. Because I get people all the time, I just want to be on probiotics. Just like some people go to the doctor and say, I want to be on this drug because they see commercials, okay? You don't need to be, or you shouldn't be. So we have to keep everything in balance. Obviously, alcohol. Alcohol does nothing good for our intestinal tract. People say, well, I drink, it relaxes me. Well, it may, your mind, and I'm not going to say a drink here and there, never, but if we start doing it daily, we're going to end up with an intestinal problem. Genetically modified foods, GMOs, and unfortunately, so many things are genetically modified, and even some things that are classified as healthy. You know, when you start buying watermelon seedless, that's genetically modified. It tastes good, it looks good, and it tastes just like the good stuff, but it's still genetically modified. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that genetically modified foods is the same as eating foods, meats, and drinking milk that's been altered because of antibiotics and steroids, etc. Our food source and our water source is becoming so polluted because people want it to grow fast. We want it quick. I don't want to spit out seeds. I love watermelon. I don't want to spit out seeds. So I buy the stuff that's seedless. So whether it's seedless grapes, seedless watermelon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The good Lord made everything with seed so it could reproduce, okay? And that's what we have to understand, that we have to get away from the idea that we want it simple. The other thing on here that is not on here is use of microwaves. Use of microwaves will create a problem because you're taking all the nutrients out of the food, and because of the radiation, okay, in the food, and it actually alters your food. It takes away the nutrients, and the radiation is bad for us just by having it running all the time or being around it. Okay, so I just threw that in. Okay, the wheat and commercial grains are basically the same thing as genetically modified. Okay, they grow it fast. It's not real. They use all kinds of chemicals. The chemicals will kill the weeds, but not kill the wheat or the grain. And when that happens, you know the grain isn't real, because the weed killers would kill everything, not just weeds. So we have to know where it's coming from. And this is a disease that damages intestinal muscles and promotes a lack of peristaltic action, okay? Some of you have heard this term before, and if you have, you've suffered with colon and digestive issues. And Crohn's disease is an autoimmune deficiency. Once the immune system becomes really broke down, you'll end up with things like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, all those things, and they become very, very dangerous, okay? The colon breaks because, again, it's just a matter of tissue. If it is diseased and it opens up and perforates, all that waste that you're carrying rushes through the body, and that is a death sentence. So that's how important it is to take care of your intestinal tract, because really it's life and death. Okay. How do you know if Sibo is a concern? Now, understand, again, I want you to understand that some of these things can be related to other things. So I don't want to say that if you have all of these or have any of them that you have Sibo, okay? We can talk about it and find out, okay? But you want to read them?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Need a break?
Yeah.
All right. So abdominal distension, which John mentioned earlier, if you eat and you see your stomach just bloat right out, that's abdominal distension. Abdominal pain and cramping. The vitamin B12 deficiency, like earlier, it said that the bacteria in your small intestine can absorb the B12 before your cells get to absorb it.
And that causes lack of energy.
Bloating after eating, chronic illness, fatigue, hypothyroid, and all the other autoimmune things John mentioned earlier, fibromyalgia and diabetes, and any gastrointestinal issues. Constipation, but more often diarrhea, which can be IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Then diarrhea, loose stools, and rapid transit. And the rapid transit is what he was talking about earlier with if you eat and then have to eliminate right away. That's because your colon's not working right. Both intestines aren't working right. All right, excessive gas, flatulence, whether it's coming up or going down, it's still not something that you should happen all the time. The H. pylori, and autoimmune damage to your stomach, like ulcers.
And just not to interrupt, but earlier, I said about the H. pylori, okay? If you have enough stomach problems, it will develop into pylori. It will. You can't help it, okay? So, and you'll develop ulcers, all kinds of things.
All right, the IBS, or inflammatory bowel diseases. Fatty food aggravation, or malabsorption, the blenteric stools, which I can't say it, but I know what it means, that your food comes out in your stools. So it means your body's not breaking down the food for you to get the nutrients from them.
So a lot of times, especially women, don't look at their stools. Most of the time I ask about stools, they go, I don't look, okay? we need to look, okay? If you see food that's undigested, that is a symptom. You want to catch it early. You don't want to let stuff happen and then find out later on. Many of these things can be corrected if you see it, you address it, and let us know, and we can tell you things that you need to stop doing or start doing.
And then food sensitivities like gluten, which is from wheat, casein, which is the protein in cow's milk, lactose, again from cow, sugars, alcohol sugars are chemicals, things like maltodextrin and erythritol are alcohol sugars. Okay.
So you kind of get a mental number on that and just kind of tell yourself, okay, do I have an issue? Okay, so the eating plan and foods that are difficult to absorb, okay, or aggravate a person's digestive system, which can cause a bloating, cramping, constipation, diarrhea. You know, obviously you need to avoid them because they're feeding the problem, okay? High fiber diets. Sometimes when we have Sibo and then we have high fiber diets, it can actually make the symptoms feel worse. The problem is that medicine will say, stay away from fiber. Don't take anything with fiber. Don't eat vegetables. Well, the problem with that is, number one, fiber will scrub the colon walls, and in your vegetables, which is high fiber, so much nutrients. So if you deny the body the ability to clean itself and don't give it nutrients over any amount of time, can be problematic, okay? And that's one of the problems I have with when I get people come in to Sibo and I say, we need to take fiber. They said no fiber. Well, you got to have some fiber. So the symptoms can feel worse because we have to scrub it out, all right? And once you get rid of these problems, then your fiber-rich diet can be resumed, because we need a high fiber diet all the time, okay? Because high fiber prevents bowel cancer, gets rid of toxins, regulates cholesterol, helps to regulate blood sugar so we're not craving sweets, lowers inflammation in the intestinal tract, okay? So you have to end it in order to be healthy. And to do it, we have to get the body back onto a high fiber, good fiber diet.
I wanted to just add something there, John. It's really important that as you increase your fiber back into your diet, or you're trying to increase your fiber in general, that you also increase your fluids. The fiber forms the stool, and the fluids move it through. So you could cause additional problems if you're increasing fiber without adding the fluids as well.
Correct. And that's what, was that Nancy?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
Nancy. Thank you. Yes, Nancy, that's in all of this stuff, and probably something I should have mentioned earlier is anytime you have a digestive issue, one of the first things you want to do is drink more water, no matter what, okay? Whether it's a first time a symptom, you want to get water in. A lot of times the water can help to wash and cleanse some things before it ever becomes a problem. But once you get to this point, yes, water, water, water. And that's why when we put people on programs, anybody who's been on a program has heard me say, water, 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 that's it. That's all we're putting in for fluids. So yes, thank you, Nancy. Okay, so there's a Fodmap diet, okay, can help. All right, so Fodmap stands for fermentable
Oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols.
polyols, okay? So now there'll be a test after this, so you have to spell those words, okay? Okay, the first one is a type, somebody's not on mute, okay, is a type of carbohydrate that acts as a prebiotic, okay? Providing food for the good bacteria in the gut, okay? So what are prebiotics? Most of the time they're vegetables. That is why we constantly get people saying, I was in a food store and they said to do prebiotics. You don't need to eat vegetables. That's your prebiotic. You don't need to buy them.
You don't need a prebiotic supplement.
You don't need a prebiotic supplement. Okay. You need prebiotics, but you need to get them through your good vegetables. The next one,
Disaccharides.
Okay, is any of a class of sugars whose molecules contain 2 monosaccharides residues. And then your monosaccharides is your glucose, okay? And that cannot be hydrolyzed to give a simpler sugar. In other words, that keeps your sugar level right. So, and polyols are a specific group of sugar alcohols that are formed via the catalytic hydrogenation of carbohydrates. In other words, you want healthy carbohydrates because carbohydrates turn into sugar, okay? But if you eat the right ones, what are the right carbohydrates? If you're going to eat them, are things like brown rice pastas, but still you don't want a lot of them. But the white stuff has got to go, all right? They're found in certain fruits, vegetables, and mushrooms, all right? But you want to be careful because they'll modify them and they'll put them in things like chewing gum, candy, and sodas. So you have to be very determined to get the right ones. The microbiome is a collection. I'm sorry, I got it.
You're jumping ahead of yourself.
Okay, so let's talk about
low Fodmap foods.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so here's an example of what a low Fodmap, which is the sugars, foods to eat. So eggplant, green beans, bok choy, bell peppers, carrots, cucumbers. It sounds like a Candida food list. Tomatoes, potatoes, grapes, kiwi, orange, bananas. Now, a lot of people, after they come off a Candida program, when John tells them they can have fruit, the first thing they say is, oh, I'm dying for a banana. Bananas that are overly ripe are too high in sugar. On this FODMAP list, bananas are almost underripe. They're still really yellow. They don't have a lot of sweetness to them. Okay, so the banana on this list is not your soft, really sugary, ripe banana. All right, pineapples, strawberries. And then we have almond milk, brie cheese, feta cheese, hard cheeses.
But I'm going to tell you, we need to stay away from the cheeses. That should be very, very limited. If you're on my program, you're not going to have it. So
I think these cheeses are just lower in sugars than other cheeses
so
are.
if you're going to eat cheese, that would be the ones.
Eggs, firm tofu, meats that are cooked but not marinated, fish and seafood, popcorn. I don't know how that gets on the list, but oats and oatmeal, sourdough bread, and dark chocolate, olives, and peanuts and peanut butters, but not your Skippy and Jif, or Skip and Jiffy, what is it? It's your all natural ones. All right, somebody got a chat. Okay, Darren.
Okay.
Thank you.
But here's the thing. Dr. Nelson, if you were to talk to Dr. Nelson, as some of you have, who, for those of you who don't know, is my mentor, and she's done presentations here, but she will tell you that I am much more strict than what even a lot of holistic people are, because people heal much faster if we get rid of some of these things, especially for a short period of time, 30, 60, 90 days. And then you heal the body, and then you can do these in moderation. But I would tell you that if you already had colon problems, you really don't want to eat much popcorn at all. Okay, really and truly don't want to. because even though you heal it, if you abuse it, you're going to go back to that problem again. Maureen, am I right or wrong?
I'm feeling she's shaking her head.
Or nodding. Okay,
Yes.
so,
Thank you.
okay, so those are the foods. Go ahead. Okay. Stop eating refined carbs. Get rid of artificial sugar. So that means avoid. And most of you have heard all this. It's the same thing. Fructose, anything that ends in OSE, high fructose corn sweeteners, mannitol, xylitol. Now there are the xylitol, if it's been added with sugar, alcohol, there is good xylitol. So there is a good and bad, all right? Sorbitol found in chewing gum. Whenever I get somebody coming in and they're chewing gum, I tell them, if you're gonna work with me, you gotta quit that. Sucralose, lactose, those are your milk products. Aspartame. People use aspartame and all your artificial sweeteners because they think they're calorie-free. Eat the calories if you're gonna have sugar, okay? Get rid of the fake stuff. Overuse of starch, which means pastas, all that stuff. And remember, if you're gonna eat pastas, do the brown rices and the brown rice pastas. Like Patty mentioned about the wheat products, get rid of them. They contain pesticides, which is so dangerous to the colon. The corn products, okay? So earlier it said eat popcorn, but I'm gonna tell you, don't. So, you know.
John, could I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
What about organic einkorn flour?
Organic,
Einkorn?
what's uncorn? It's either corn or not corn, I would think.
No, einkorn is German. It means one grain, and it's supposed to be like an ancient grain. It's not modified. It hasn't
So
been
is it
tampered
spelled
with.
UN corn?
EINKORN, einkorn.
Uncorn. Okay.
I'm looking that up.
Okay, while she's looking that up,
Okay.
we'll give you an answer. Thank you. A lot of the stuff that the wheat products and the corn products carries glyphosate and Roundup, okay? Companies right outside of where we live says it can't hurt you, but it does. It kills the microbiome, okay? And a microbiome is the collection of all the microbes, all your bacteria, fungi, viruses, and all their genes that are supposed to naturally live in our bodies, on our bodies and inside, okay? Microbiomes are so small that they require a microscope to see them. You don't see them, so you don't know what they are. But you have to have them to have health. And so when you take, and when I test people and glyphosate and Roundup come up, that means people are eating the wrong foods. And I don't care what Monsanto or any of those other companies tell you, it is killing us, okay? Bottled fruit juice, if I used to drink orange juice by the gallons, okay, when I was unhealthy. I thought I was being healthy. If you want to drink it, you juice it yourself. Squeeze the oranges, all right? So those are the foods that we need to eliminate or very, very limited.
I have this einkorn wheat. It contains gluten. There's a lot of information. I'd have to spend a little more time trying to get another answer for you, Mira, but it does say that it contains gluten. So I'll look into it some more and we'll let you know.
I know it does contain gluten. I try to buy it organic even. I don't know how much difference it makes buying anything organic anymore, but
Okay.
it's supposed to be much better than commercial wheat.
Okay. All right. I'm going to check it out. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so bacteria ferment fiber, okay, we talked about fermentation, all right. Fermentation is good, but not during taking it during overgrowth. Okay, bone broth can be good. Okay, we need, because bone broth is actually a good fiber, and it's found different things. It's found in fruits and vegetables, etc. We just need to eat the right, it just comes down to eating the right food. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but if we eat the right food, our body is going to stay healthy once we get it healthy. Okay. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it says some, but a lot of the Sibo cases are Candida related. All right. So we have to do change of food script with Candida. Then if somebody gets rid of Candida and they still have Sibo, then we can add certain foods while we get rid of the Sibo problem. But I will tell you that most people that go through a Candida program get rid of Sibo. All right. But the thing is, once you've had Sibo or Candida, you have to be a little bit more careful of what you eat, because if your body goes back that direction because of high stress, poor eating, et cetera, it can come back, especially Sibo. Okay. Because if you start having gas problems, you want to fix it immediately and not let it build up, not put it off, because it's summertime, because it's holidays, it's because, somebody's getting married and I want to, whatever. You got to take care of yourself. Okay. Again, kind of a idea, eat for all of us, eat less frequently. Give your system a chance to heal, to take time out. So if you're snacking all the time, even if it's healthy food, it's best to get rid of that always eating mindset. And then, Nancy, as you said, drink lots of pure water, not tap water. Okay, you don't want the chlorine, fluorides, as all the chemicals. So pure, clean water. It needs to be purified or reverse osmosis water, clean. Okay.
So why should we avoid the fluoride? My doctor is just prescribed for my kids the fluoride. So
Yes, indeed, they do, and that is sad. Okay, fluoride has been proven over and over and over that fluoride is not something to be put in your body. All right, when you do toothpaste, it should be fluoride free. Everything should be fluoride. Don't do fluoride. It is a chemical. It creates problems within our body. I'm not going to tell you that fluoride once in a while, but when they used to be, every time you went to the dentist, they use all kinds of fluoride in your body. They told you to use fluoride in your mouthwash, in your toothpaste, etc. So you just believe me, and I'm not picking on doctors or dentists, but they have a system. They don't look at chemicals. They said all of our fillings were fine. It turns out they're not. Okay. So you just have to use common sense and just say, you know what, I'm going to protect myself. Okay. So who has questions?
John,
Maureen.
is alkaline water better for you than like the spring water?
Yes.
Okay.
Alkaline water is better as long as you know that it's alkaline. Okay. Which brings me into the idea that, marketing can be very powerful. If you can get a system in your home that makes your water alkaline or reverse osmosis, that's what you want. The labels don't always mean it's true. And that's unfortunate. Okay. So, I listened to a presentation from a gentleman last week that does water. And, I asked him, is there anybody that checks bottles of water that says spring water or reverse osmosis? No, there isn't. So brands put a
Okay.
label on and says it's this. You know, I've asked companies, I say, where's the spring? Nobody can tell me where the spring is, okay? If it's spring water. So we don't know what bottled water is. And that brings me to a point. Nancy mentioned water. Bottled water is as bad as tap water. Okay, those plastics defer and eliminate the natural nutrients in water because of the plastic itself. So especially the soft plastic. When you take a bottle of water and you can squeeze it real easy, the water is compromised. Okay.
Okay.
So do you recommend the like filter water? Is like where what I didn't get it. It's like no tap water
No
because
tap water.
chlorine in it, no
No
bottled
tap.
water. It's like so
Yeah.
where
Okay, to answer your question, and that if you come in, we'll talk much more in depth about this, but water is the hardest thing I talk to people about. Why? Because you have to drink water, right, Nancy? You have to drink water. You must drink water to be healthy, okay? But our water is polluted. Tap water is horrible, okay? Studies have shown that the water is so polluted that we were drinking other people's antibiotics and waste and stuff. That's because it can't be purified. Bottled water is a problem because of the plastic. If they put bottled water, and I see people in the summertime keeping cases of water in their trunk of their car, then when they go places, they already have the water, so they drink the water. That water is very totally compromised, okay, because of the plastic. And the more heat it's been in, the worse it gets. So you're actually drinking toxins. So I tell people, have your water tested, see what's in the water, and then for not a real lot of money, you can have a filter, have your water filtered so it's reverse osmosis or alkaline, okay? And that's the water you need to drink. So we have to protect ourselves. When I was a kid, we used to go to the stream and drink water out of the stream, but it was, you know, water was running over the rocks. It was clean, but today we just don't have it. Heather, you had a question.
On the Zyto, John, will Sibo come up as a condition or will it come up as Candida?
Well, it can come up as Candida more often than not, but it'll also show me the intestinal tract. And it depends on if the small intestines is stressed or no energy, then it's more likely to be Sibo, okay? If it's the colon that's stressed, then it's more likely to be Candida. But most of the time, if the small intestines are stressed, so is a colon, and vice versa. If one has no energy, the other one's either stressed or no energy, so it goes back and forth. Anybody else have a question?
so when you're presenting, you mentioned that it's like if you're our programs, it's like this is my first time to join the Zoom. I don't know what kind of program do you have. So it's like learning more about it. Do you have other programs or this is only Zoom that you're talking about?
Oh no, people come in and we do consultations and determine what a person needs. Okay, and then we put them on a structured program with the right nutrients, what foods you need to eat, et cetera, et cetera. If you're interested in changing your health, you would just call the office and we'd schedule you a consultation where I'm going to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with you to go over everything.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Who else has a question? Maggie,
So
who
can you
is-
please put your number on the chat? It's like
Sure. We'll do that on the corporate sense.
Only in the corporate sense.
Everything's a corporate sense. So I'll say sure, Patty will do it.
Hi, guys. For some reason, I can't see the video anymore because I switched to my cell phone so I could walk over to the hockey game.
Okay.
But
You were in process. We stopped it just a couple minutes ago.
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. I wasn't seeing any more of it. I was hearing, but I couldn't see it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't see you either anymore.
Anybody have any questions? Any more questions?
John,
somehow.
Mariel?
I just have a little question. Excuse me. Is there a big difference really between organic flour and regular flour? I like to bake bread. So I like to use the einkorn, but it's very, very hard to bake with because it's such a heavy grain. But is organic really that different from regular wheat flour?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what I use, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, because of the way they treat it, the way it's grown, et cetera. So it's kind of like, you know, you eat fish is farm raised versus wild. Yes, big difference. Okay. Farm raised is much easier to get, but it's not healthy. So, who else?